A lot of people hate the JAR-5 Dominator, and yeah, I totally get why. It's super slow to aim, making it almost impossible to hit fast moving targets. It has incredibly high recoil, that camera shake, and it's just really freaking hard to use. However, I want to propose a totally new way of thinking about this weapon. Here it is. The JAR-5 Dominator is not a primary weapon. What the hell am I talking about? Well, that's exactly what this video is about. In this video, I want to do two things. One, I want to explain to you why exactly the Dominator is not a primary weapon and is in fact a support weapon. And two, I want to show you my own personal Dominator loadout that kind of revolutionized the way I think about this weapon, and even the way that I play Helldivers too. So let's get into it and start by talking about why the Dominator is not a primary weapon. Okay, so what am I talking about? What do I mean the Dominator isn't a primary weapon? Obviously, it is actually a primary weapon. Well, firstly, we have to define what exactly a primary weapon is. What role should a primary weapon fulfill? Well, I think a primary weapon is basically a weapon that is your default weapon. It's the one that you keep out most of the time and you use to deal with most mild to medium situations that you come across. And in this regard, the Dominator sucks. It's really heavy and has a really low fire rate, so it's terrible at dealing with those small, fast-moving targets. It has a tiny magazine, so you don't want to waste your ammo on a single bug. And it's not great at these groups because, again, poor handling, low fire rate, small magazine. But that doesn't mean the Dominator is a bad weapon. It's not at all. It's actually really good, but just in a few key ways. One, it absolutely smashes medium armored targets like automaton walkers and hive guards, both of which are pretty hard to deal with for most other primary weapons. Two, it's great for one-shotting units like Warrior, even at decent range. Three, it can pick out automaton weak spots really well. And four, in a pinch, it's actually not a bad sniper. It's just not a good primary weapon. A good primary weapon would be something like the Breaker. It easily handles small targets, slaughters small groups, is fast firing, quick to aim, good at short and long range. It's just a great all-round weapon. And the Sickle fits this bill too. Both are just really versatile weapons and therefore great primaries. And I think that's the key word really, versatile. The Dominator though, no, it's not versatile at all. The problem is though, if we do take the Dominator as our primary weapon, we really need another weapon to fill in all the gaps where the Dominator is lacking. We need something that can handle those smaller targets and those swarms. Enter the Stalwart. The Stalwart has a high fire rate, a large magazine, and it's decent at medium to long range if you manage your fire rate well. The only downside is it's about as heavy as the Dominator, so it's not that quick to aim. But any problems there are offset by the high fire rate, so you don't need to be as accurate with your shots. All of those features combined make the Stalwart actually a pretty damn good primary weapon. And that brings me to the main purpose of this video. I want to show you guys my Dominator loadout that features the Dominator as a support weapon and the Stalwart as the primary weapon. And as I said at the start of this video, this loadout totally blew my mind. Alright, let me show you it. Okay, so in short, the four key items in this loadout that make it what it is are the Dominator and Stalwart, as I mentioned, one more stratagem weapon, the EAT, which is weird, I know, because most loadouts only have one stratagem weapon, but this works because of the short cooldown time on the EAT, so you can just call it whenever you need it. And the final item is the Rail Cannon Strike. Then to fill out all the rest of the slots, I personally use the P19 Redeemer as my sidearm, the Incendiary Grenade as my grenade, and the LAS-5 Guard Dog Rover. These items are not absolutely essential to the loadout though, and can be swapped for alternatives if you want. I would recommend maybe instead of the Rover, you could take an airstrike like the Eagle airstrike, or you could take maybe a Gatling turret, something like that. But I personally like the Rover just because of the extra damage it gives me on those little targets. The primary function of each of the 4 items is the Stalwart is our primary weapon, as I said, the Dominator is our anti-medium armor weapon, the EAT is our anti-heavy weapon, so for taking out things like charges, and the Rail Cannon is our anti-Biotitan weapon. Basically, the way I use the loadout is like this. Most of the time, we keep our Stalwart out, that's our primary weapon after all. Then, as soon as we spot a medium armored target like a Hive Guard, we'll switch to our Dominator, smash them in the face, then switch back to our Stalwart and continue on our way. If we find ourselves with a swarm in our hands, the Stalwart is more than capable of handling most of the smaller targets, and the Dominator can take out the armored ones. Then if we come face to face with a charger, we'll call down an EAT, switch the Stalwart out for that, take out the charger, then immediately pick up our Stalwart again and continue with the mission. Then if we come up against a Biotitan, we call down the EAT, chuck a Rail Cannon strike at him, then grab both EATs, fire them off, and he's dead. And just quickly, in terms of downsides to this loadout, I would say the main one is the constant switching between your Stalwart and the EATs. Sometimes when you put down the Stalwart and you fire off your EAT, if there's a swarm going on, you'll sometimes find it difficult to get back to the Stalwart to pick it up. And so you might be in a situation where you're having to survive without your Stalwart. So you have to survive without your primary weapon. And that can be a bit of a problem, but I've found that most of the time I can rely on my Redeemer, so my sidearm, and the Dominator, as well as my grenades to clear out any bugs or any enemies that are around my Stalwart, and then I can get back to it and pick it up. Most of the time I don't come across this when I'm playing in a group, because my teammates can handle any of the enemies that are around, but when I'm playing solo, yeah, it's definitely a problem. So I think if you're playing on really high difficulties as a solo player, maybe this loadout isn't for you. I'm not sure, you might have to give it a go and let me know, but that's the main downside that I found. And that's it guys, that's my video about the Dominator, why it's not a primary weapon, and my Dominator Stalwart loadout. I don't know if this is all as profound to you guys as it was to me when I first came up with it, but for me it kind of blew my mind and it totally changed the way that I saw the Dominator, and even the way that I play Helldivers 2. The whole system of having multiple stratagem weapons and then just calling down the EAT when I need it rather than carrying it around all the time, and using a stratagem weapon, the Stalwart, as a primary, that sort of just blew my mind. So I hope it was at least somewhat as profound for you as it was for me. I'd love to hear from you if you have any notes for me, if you have any improvements that you might make to this loadout, let me know down in the comments. And if you've already used a loadout similar to this, or you've always thought of the Dominator in this way, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And as always guys, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if not, subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.